Right now with capitalism, all of the gains in automation, it goes to the owner class. All you have to do is have everyone be an owner, and now suddenly any gain in automation is a gain for everybody. If you grow just one thing, it may not grow as well as if it grows with another thing. A good example of that is called the Three Sisters method of farming.
There is definitely multi-apartment buildings or multi-families that do passive design.
$100 million that they gave to Joe Rogan that they would kind of be out if they breach contract. Is that a bigger number? Or is 2 billion a bigger number?
I don't know,
It's
Zach.
a tough one.
This
I
is
know.
really hard.
And maybe
Yes.
comparing numbers is not Jeremy's strong suit. Gotta go kill a Jenny.
I still don't think you should kill her. I don't think it's a good idea.
It's a ghost, dude. Welcome back, everybody, to Bread Theory. So tonight we're going to begin a journey on something a little bit different. So most of the time when we do this channel, we're listening to audiobooks by famous thinkers, usually of the leftist variety, or reacting to content that's already come out. In this case, we're going to be going one step further, and we're going to be starting our process of creating an audiobook. And it's for an audiobook that is a very important book, especially in the permaculture realm, widely considered the most important permaculture text, and that being Permaculture, a Designer's Manual. There is no audiobook that I'm aware of for this particular text. And it's easy to see why. In general, it is it's a long book. It's a tome. Let's pull it up on screen. In fact, let's look for an actual text copy of it and see what comes up. So let's see. Quick Aliens. What is this? Available for $29. Oh, it's an ebook edition. Oh, so there's an ebook edition of it now. That's good to know, but that's not quite what we're looking for. We want the real thing. So we'll just look on eBay, because I can't find any other source that's not Amazon. Although Tagari Press, that's the original publisher of it. Buy this book. So offering it for $131 Australian. And this is the book written by Bill Mollison that is supposed to be the teaching manual for a permaculture design certificate class. So it's a pretty important thing to have if you're going to be a teacher in permaculture, but also if you're going to study it. It goes through his entire theory as it stood in, what year was this actually made? That's another good question. Let's see. Oh, well, the one I have. Original copyright in 1988. So, yeah, it is coming up on what? It's 30-year anniversary. Pretty soon. Or wait, 98, 08, 18. That's 30. So it's coming up on the 40-year anniversary. Jeez, good at math. No, math was never my strong suit. So yeah, so I have a PDF version of it, and I'm going to encourage anyone watching or listening right now to go download your own copy. You can get a free copy of it, of a PDF form. So this is a scan of the book itself. But hold on. Let's back up just a second, because I want to show you just how big of a book this is. So I guess we're going to have to go to Amazon, unfortunately. And we will... hey, Allie. Thanks for the cheer. Good to have you here. Let's share the screen here. First on the Chrome tab. So you can get an idea of just how big this is. So, print length, 576 pages. That's a book. That's a book. And these are not small pages either. This is like your standard 8 by 10. In fact, there it is right there. 8 3/4 by 11 and a quarter. So it's a full sheet of paper on each page. Now, a big reason why it's so long is that it is fully illustrated. So Oh, you can get it on a t-shirt. That's funny. Oh no, they're just showing how big it is in comparison to a t-shirt. Gotcha. Anyway, so let's back up out of that for a second, and we'll go into the text itself, and we can show you what it looks like. So we want a window right there. Now we're going to share that screen. Hopefully that's come up right. We're going to hide that. Oh, so when I click away, oh, this might be difficult. It looks like when I click onto it, I wonder if that's still showing up on the screen. Where has my image gone? Okay, it looks like it is still showing up for you guys. That's good. So as you can see, this is a pretty rough scan. Many of the pages are off center. Many of them were not completely flat when scanned, but this is the best scan in existence. It's the one I always see. But yeah, so we'll get past the preface here a little bit, but already you can see a big table, little bit of a diagram. That just talks about the cover, but here, full page of illustrations. So you have contemporary Western agriculture, transitional and conservation farming, and permaculture, 70% cropland devoted to forage farming. Another full page illustration. And that's going to be one of the big challenges in converting this into a PDF, not into a PDF, into an audiobook. And this is one of the reasons that I need help from all y'all, is that I need to know what the consensus are. So just for this first picture, we need to have descriptive text that goes along with it. And we need to develop some rules about where in the audiobook that's going to go. So do we read this entire page and then say image description right at the end of that period? If it's a sentence that runs on to the next page, what do we do in that case? Because that happens quite a lot. Something I hate in textbooks, where you have a sentence that finishes and either refers to a figure on a previous page, or doesn't at all, and you just have to go back after you. I don't like flipping back and forth, is the point, between page and page. So here we go already. A second approach is on permanent pasture of prairie, pampas, and modern Western farms, where large holidays and few people create vast grazing leases, usually for a single species of animal. This is best described as baronial permaculture, with continued on page 6. So we're on page 3. So you have all of these things that we're supposed to look at, and then this is from page 3, near regal. So are we going to make the rule that we finish this paragraph, then go back to the previous 2 pages and do an image description? I don't really think so. I don't think that sounds like a good way of doing it. I think as soon as we get to a paragraph that includes, say, a footnote, we go straight to that footnote, or a reference to a figure, then we immediately, after that sentence ends, do the image description, wherever it may be. If it's on the same page, same page. If it's on the next page or previous page, we flip forward or back. But I need some consensus on what the image description is. What would you describe for this first image? We have a slightly sloping farm, a traditional agricultural farm, some mountains in the background. The sun is in the sky. There are some clouds. The caption reads A period contemporary / Western agriculture, and we have a figure of a combine that is probably harvesting wheat or corn or some other sort of grain. And then there's a little shed, presumably the farmer's house. Is that an adequate description? We have the run of water and a little arrow that runs into a ditch, and you can see it's clear blue water, or I'm sorry, it's muddied water because of all the sediment and the runoff. and then figure B. We need a process for going through this, and we need it to be. My goal is actually twofold with this audiobook. One, to make it accessible for people who, like myself, don't really have time to read print, but may have time while they're working at their job. Say they're doing delivery or something something else where they don't need to be hearing things constantly. Desk job, any sort of job where you can have headphones in, right? Maybe then they can absorb the information. And some people absorb information that way better. So there's goal one. Goal two is to make this book accessible to the visually impaired. This has been an entire discipline that has been very much beyond the learning abilities of the visually impaired for the most part. Now, there's plenty of YouTube videos out there, and you can always listen to the audio and kind of get an idea of it. There are podcasts out there, but when it comes to the texts themselves, there is very few quality audiobooks. Furthermore, because this is a scan, I mean, it's going to depend on how good your text-to-speech software is. Perhaps it would be able to get most of the words correctly, but like I said, there are places where I know for sure that the print is ambiguous, because I have taken a program that scans PDFs and tries to put them into a text document, and I've gone through, and there's been many errors. Now, you wouldn't think that would be the case just going PDF to text when it began with the text, but like I said, the scan's not perfect. It's been smudged, it's been improperly set in places, and the machine algorithm makes the wrong choice when interpreting parts of it. So that's not great either. That means that this and many other ones are just outside of the realm of possibility for learning for the visually impaired, or people that are illiterate as well, people that just cannot read. Hello to you, James. Sorry to take so long to say hi to you. So tonight we're starting a journey on making the audiobook for Permaculture, a Designer's Manual. And I need your help with a lot, really. I need help with image descriptions to get some consensus on that. I need perhaps help with people to actually speak the text. Even if I do this entire book myself, which I'm planning on recording it, and we'll go through that process as well. Yeah, no problem, James. Thanks. Even if I record this entire book, it's generally a good idea in the audiobooks world to have several versions of the same text, because not everyone is going to jibe with my voice. It's just a fact of life. Some people are going to find me hard to understand, or certain ways that I pronounce things to be abrasive, or to take them out of the text, and that's fine. We want them to have options as well. So if anyone out there would like to volunteer for this project as well, I certainly invite you to come along on this experience and to download the text yourself and start recording an audiobook version yourself. And then we can just put as many of these out onto YouTube as possible. We're going to start with YouTube. We'll put it out into podcast form later on. But I haven't been keeping up with my podcast very well. If any of you out there also have a podcast of your own, and you'd like to lend some of the audio space for this project, more than happy to give you the finished product, whatever that may be. And okay, so another note here. I don't have the best audio book recording equipment. I'm going to try and maintain a clear and steady rate of speech. I'm going to try and be as articulate as possible. So that's my internal part of things. But then also, I live by a high traffic road. There's going to be noise of cars going by. There's going to be sounds from people in other rooms, other parts of the building. We're going to have to work through all of that. But maybe you don't have those impediments. That might make you a good candidate for helping out with this project yourself. I'm going to minimize that just a little bit more so that we can see. so you can see my pretty face a little bit better. So we're going to zoom in so we can make this text basically full screen. All right, so there's a little bit of an intro to the book. This book was groundbreaking. This kind of set the entire permaculture movement in motion. He'd come out with at least one other book before this. And I should also mention that although this book is only credited with Bill Mollison as the author, his graduate assistant, David Holmgren, played a critical role in doing the research and putting this work together. So it's kind of my feeling that he should have gotten an author credit too, even if he didn't write any of the final manuscript. He played an integral role in this, and he came up with what I might consider the second most important permaculture book, and that being Permaculture: Principles and Pathways Beyond Sustainability. A really phenomenal text where he took the work of Permaculture, a designer's manual, and tried to break it down into more manageable pieces. He came up with 12 principles from this text that he laid out one after another, and it was things like use and value diversity, use and value renewable resources, produce no waste, observe and interact, stuff like that. So he came up with 12 of them and then talked about each one and how it fits into the whole of the permaculture theory, and how the whole itself is because of the ways that the different elements work together, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So another really phenomenal book, and perhaps we'll tackle that one some other day. But having said all that, some reasons why I think this project is something that we should be able to do, even if, strictly speaking, this is still under copyright. So, like I said, we're coming up on 40 years of this book being in print. If the authors have not made their money back at this point, it's probably never going to happen. So I feel like putting out an audiobook of a text that is available for free on the internet is not taking a single dime away from Tagari Press. In fact, if at the end of this project or at any part of this project, someone from Tagari Press contacts me and says either cease and desist or, hey, we got a copyright claim on this, that's fine, as long as they want to take the work that we've done and continue it. Because I think this book is too important to just keep away from those who learn best or need to have audiobooks in order to comprehend and absorb the information. So this project is not about making any money. I don't expect to make any money from this. If somehow this catches on and the video gets shared far and wide, any money that I make from it, I'll figure out how to donate to a permaculture project, perhaps Tagari Press. First and foremost, we'll see how it goes. So there's just some kind of some ethical dilemmas that we have to sort through. This being, a newer text, and the way that copyright works is ridiculous, because I believe that the current rule is you can hold the copyright for a given piece of literature for, is it 70 or is it 90 years past the death of the author? So not since they even wrote it, since they died. So if they wrote something at, 20 years old and lived to some ripe old age, say 100 years old, that book could be under copyright for over 100 years. And that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That is basically just greed at that point. There's no more effort, no more labor that has happened. It's not as though authors won't put out the effort if people don't keep getting to cash in long after they've even died. That notion seems ridiculous to me. I mean, this would support generations after them. So there's that part too. Copyright law, especially in America, is ridiculous. So how I think we're going to proceed tonight is, instead of just diving into the text straightforward, I'd like to look at a couple of primers on YouTube about how to do audiobooks, so that if any of you are really feeling interested in the concept, and perhaps you want to get your feet wet doing it a little bit, you can have at least a little bit of knowledge about how to go about it. Let's see what we got. So there's a bunch of short videos, which is good. Let's start with this lady. She's a narrator for Audible. Let's take a look at what she has to say. I think she'll probably... Yeah, I can do it for you. Okay. No problem. And that's the thing. By going over this text in such fine detail and puzzling over how to articulate the drawings and the illustrations and the tables and all that stuff in a meaningful way, we're all going to be very familiar with this text by the end of it. So there's the secret goal number 3, is that by doing this and covering it again and again and again in order to get this audiobook produced, we're going to become pretty good experts on the subject matter. So a little bit about the process too. What I'm thinking for when we actually are recording the audiobook is I will take the section that I'm going to do for the night. I don't think I'm going to get nearly through an entire chapter, especially when we're having to puzzle out image descriptions, especially like, I mean, look at the image in the background there. That's one of the images from the book. So that's going to be a difficult one to make a description of. It may be a many pages long description to cover in enough detail that someone could comprehend it without ever having to see the text itself. Oh, and as you'll notice too, this particular illustration, and I think this is from the designer's manual, if I remember correctly, this illustration is in handwriting, the notes are. So that's probably another reason that it's difficult to just auto-generate the text and then say have a robot voice read it through, and bada bing bada boom, you have an audiobook. It doesn't quite work that way, not with this text. All right. So anyway, the process. Yeah, getting back to the process. What I think is going to happen is we'll get through whatever we can figure out we can get through. And this is going to be an every other week thing, because on the alternating weeks, we have Dan Platt, doing political reactions and stuff like that. So the weeks that I'm off with Dan, we'll be doing this project on Sundays. And so whatever we get through in a night, I will put the raw recording into a playlist in my YouTube, and that, yeah, Dan is really cool. And then I'm going to go back on my own, make an edited copy, because I have an idea of how I want to do the recording, where it'll just be a continuous, I flub a word or a sentence, I just restate it. Maybe I'll make some sort of a verbal cue so that I can find it easily when I'm going back to edit, and eventually we'll stitch together a perfect, as perfect as I can do, reading of everything. And then once that arduous process is done, I will put it out chapter by chapter. Maybe even split it into multiple sections per chapter, because it just is going to be that long. Like I said, we're getting through over 500 pages of this stuff, so perhaps it's going to be more than an installment per chapter. But the idea is to have it just read continuously through as it's written on the page. This will be, again, another departure, or a little bit of a departure from what we usually do, in that, in terms of the finished product, there's going to be no commentary, none of my own thoughts on the matter, just the text with audio or with image descriptions to go along with them. That's it. I don't feel that it needs anything more. I think it detracts from the purpose of it. If you have questions during, one of these sessions here, that's totally fine. We can take a little sidebar and try and answer, especially when we're coming up with image descriptions that might be a little bit harder to understand what's going on if you're uninitiated to the permaculture process. So yeah, anyway, so without further ado, let's look at some how-tos on audiobooks. So we'll get an idea of some best practices. It's not going to, by no means is this going to be a perfect professional experience, but I think we can make it good. I think we can shoot for at least like a 7 out of a 10 in terms of audio recordings. We'll, get to the level of, say, Audible Anarchist. Okay, they do great work. They don't have perfect speakers every single time that has rented out a professional sound room and had professional mixing and editing and stuff like that. It's usually just a person sitting with a book and reading it, and yet they still do a good enough job where, like, you're not taken out by extraneous noises. They don't laugh or giggle or flub words and continue on. You can tell that they're presenting the text exactly as it is. And that's the benchmark that we're looking for with this. All right, so let's hear, first and foremost, let's get an idea of some quick tips to be better at recording audiobooks.
Let's try this again. All right, I need y'all to cooperate. What is up, divas and divas? It's your girl Nikki, the Deal Finding Diva. Welcome back to my channel where I show you how to either make money or save money. And today we're going to get down to the nitty gritty about making money with ACX. And I want to tell you all the hard truth about making money with ACX, because a lot of you have been interested in ACX? Making money with voice narration through ACX, and a lot of you have actually subscribed to my channel because of comments that I have placed on other YouTubers' channels based off of my experience with ACX. And I would like to say thank you for subscribing. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, please, and turn on your notifications. So yes, a lot of people have been interested in ACX, and there have been so many questions. As much as I try to shut down this whole ACX thing, you guys keep coming back. So I decided I wanted to do a video and give you...
Gotta say, I'm not too impressed so far. That this has given me some big multi-level marketing vibes. So I'm gonna give this another few seconds.
All some hard
we may
truth,
just be moving on.
as well as there was actually a message that was very, very, very disheartening that I saw on my channel, and I do want to discuss it with you all regarding ACX. Please show some love on my channel before we move on, and hit that thumbs up, and also please don't forget to subscribe again and turn on your notifications.
Moving on. Here we go.
Truth. So some people might get a little attitude. Don't get in your feelings. I just ask, try not to get into your feelings, because I'm going to give you the honest truth about ACX, and some things some people might not like to hear, because I know a lot of people don't like the truth. So the first hard truth that I want to talk to you all about is you're not going to get away with putting out crap when it comes to ACX. You can't go to a legit platform such as ACX, which sells audiobooks.
Yep, this is really striking some multi-level marketing chords with me, especially after the recent, I think it was it Second Thought, or was it Folding Ideas? I think it was Second Thought put out a video about audiobook MLMs. So, Jesus Christ. I have people scraping out in the parking lot. That's great. Let's see.
Yes! You've written a book, and now you want to record an audiobook for it. First, virtual high five for being awesome. I love audiobooks and listen to them while I'm walking to and from work. And get yourself ready to record your audiobook. That's what we're talking about today, so stick around. Self-publishing service company help book launchers. One of the whether you should be the one to narrate it or not. Those videos are here and here, actually probably both linked over here. And one of my favorite YouTube besties, Fio Shea, asked how to go about recording an audiobook. So today we're going to help you get ready for going into the studio to record. And I guess that's something else to cover. Can you just grab a mic?
Oh my God, just get to it.
The audiobook listener doesn't tolerate lower quality like a podcast list award-winning audio producer and editor who also acted as my voice video. All right, so getting ready for this, do expect to be in the studio for probably 2 to 3 hours for every 10,000 words in your book. And expect it to be physically
useful advice.
demanding. I loved it, but I found I could really only do about 6 hours a day recording, and it was intense.
We're not
And
gonna
I
come
wasn't as
anywhere
prepared
near
as I
that
should have
much.
been. It's my fault. I expected it to be way easier than it was. So next time, here's what I'll do, and here's what I advise you and our clients to do. Number one, read your book out loud at least once before. This is a great way to finalize your book, by the way. You'll find things that you missed in
Not bad
all other
advice.
edits, guaranteed. And it's also a great opportunity for you to find places that you need to pause, breathe. Commas mean breathe. And also to check how you'll pronounce certain names and places that you might be uncertain about. Number two, record a chapter and run it by a voice coach. This is not the same as podcasting or public speaking. There are accepted techniques and ways to speak so that you are connecting to your listener and creating engagement with your book, especially after you've been in the studio for 6 hours.
That brings up a good point for me that I hadn't really considered, and that's if I'm recording this live, hopefully I'll be getting good feedback from you guys, but it may take a few days for something to sink in, something that might have been off with the recording, or the way that I pronounced something, or misread a word or something like that. I may catch myself that I've made a mistake later on. So I think it might be a good idea to listen back a few times. So we may actually have to come back to previous chapters, previous sections, and re-record. And I think that's okay. It might be a little bit more tedious of a project that way, but I think we're going for that 7 out of 10. Let's even say 8 out of 10 quality in terms of audiobook production value. So I think it'll be worth it in the end.
One of the big things I had to do was slow down my speech. As a few somewhat unkind YouTube viewers have noted,
I will too. I have a tendency to, my brain just gets going faster than my mouth is willing to process what it's thinking. And so I have a tendency to kind of just rush through and kind of, slur together and do a lot of uhs. Look, this is the communication between my brain and my mouth as I outrun my buffer, so to speak. So I think that's a good point of advice for myself. Slow down, make sure that you're delivering things in a quality way. It's kind of like how I approached delivery when I was a delivery driver. Yes, you can go really fast and you can get a lot of stuff done if you're just hucking stuff out of the truck and like barely glance at a address before you throw it in what you think is the closest approximation of where it should go. But you tend to make a lot more mistakes that way and have to go back, and over the long term, it can end up costing you time, which costs you money. So going slow enough, going at a deliberate enough pace, also so that I was not hurting my body and wrecking it to the point where, my knees were not agreeing with anything I was putting them through the next day. That's something I learned from just being a delivery driver. You got to go at the pace that works for you, so you will process things in a consistent and high level of quality, just manner of doing things. That was a really awkward sentence, but I think you get the gist of it. So yeah, slowing down, being deliberate, these are things I'm going to have to keep in mind as I do this project too.
I get excitable and I speak really fast when I get excited. So with an audiobook, every single word needs to be read, heard, and understood. So go slower than your natural pace in most cases. We also have habits. Maybe we don't pronounce our T's as well as we should, or we raise our voice at the end.
Oh, and good point, James. What if you don't like to read, and that's why you let other people do it for you? I mean, that's a big reason that I've gotten into audiobooks. Not only do I not just not have the time, when I get home from work, I'm usually exhausted. I don't really have the mental bandwidth to do much more than absorb things. So it usually means other people have to do the talking and stuff like that. And that gives me time to just unfurl, unclench, unwind, stuff like that. So I totally get that. And that's a big part of why we're doing this.
End of sentences that are statements. A voice coach will help you with all of this. They'll also help you figure out when you should breathe.
Good advice. And we may look up some voice coaching techniques at some point, but This is going to be a shoestring budget, believe it or not. We are not by any means going to be. We're going to go for the highest quality that we can do with the means that we have available to us. So, this Yeti microphone, this camera, and you all helping out wherever you can. Let me just make sure that I have the audio set up right too. Good. Looks like I do. And I would like you guys too, if you're getting distracted by any sort of extraneous noise, any you know, vocal tics that I have. I know I tend to do the whistling of S's sometimes. If there's anything that's just bugging you, let me know. My goal is to make this the highest quality product as possible, and as broadly appealing as possible, so as many people as possible can get this information. So don't worry about hurting my feelings or thinking that I'm going to react badly to it. I'm going to be appreciative. I guarantee it. And you know what? There's a lot of words out there that I've only ever read and never said out loud. And they may appear in this book too. So if you have a better understanding of how a word is pronounced, let me know that too. That's super helpful. Moving on with this video. This is just, actually once we get past the sales pitches, a little bit more useful than the last one.
Like I mentioned, you breathe at every comma or period, or you'll find yourself caught. But the coach will help guide you through this. Finally, on the day of recording, my advice is to avoid any foods or drinks that will give you phlegm. For me, that's spicy foods and dairy products. Also, avoid anything fizzy, because you don't want to be burping. Seriously, you might be laughing at me, but this is so real. You do want to keep hydrated. Tea with honey and lemon, hot water, maybe energy drinks, but be careful because sugar and caffeine can dehydrate and have the opposite effect that you want on your voice. Bring snacks. Fruit and nuts are great options, I think. Sadly, chocolate doesn't work. I tried. Phlegm. Most important, have fun. This is your book, baby, and you're bringing it to life in an entirely new and cool way. Enjoy the process, and thanks for the question, Fee. If you've got a question, go ahead and post it in the comments below, and I just might shoot a video for you. And while you're here, smash that thumbs up button because it makes me happy and tells YouTube this content is cool. And comment because commenting.
That was useful. Okay. Let's see. Audiobook narration tips for beginners. Let's see what this guy says.
Hey, Kevin Clay here, and I want to talk a little bit to the brand.
He's got that golden throat radio voice, ready to go for the drive time morning hour.
You're just thinking about going into audiobook narration. Now, there's a lot of advice out there for narrators. So, what is the need?
There's another question. Should I just use my natural voice? That's probably going to be what it's going to be. Or should I affect a more sultry tone or a different accent that perhaps allows you to digest and stay engaged better? There's plenty of different voices I can do. So let me know what you think in the comments.
For what I'm about to say to you. Well, here's what I've noticed. A lot of the advice that new narrators get is really not appropriate to their level or where they are or what their needs are. I mean, I'll give you an example. I went to a seminar and heard the guy say you should never edit your own audio. You should always send it off and have a pro do it.
Well, I mean, that does not apply here. Shoestring budget. Moving on.
He is exactly right. But there are a lot of times things that are the pinnacle, the ideal situation, that in reality, we're not going to be able to deal with. I mean, if you're starting out, you're trying to find out if you can make some extra money at this. You need some extra money to pay the rent or just get groceries or whatever. Well, paying, 60, 70, 80, whatever dollars per finished hour to have your audiobook narrated that you're just trying to figure out, that's unrealistic. And so I want to try to take a very realistic approach at things you're going to know. We're going to talk about what you can realistically expect to earn starting out. How do you stay motivated, or should you even stay motivated? And what I did, just my own little personal story of going from making $12 my first year in audiobooks to doing a little bit better than that later on. So this isn't about bragging about look how great I am. There are a lot of people who do much better than I do, but I think I've got a pretty good connection with people just starting out. First of all, if you are looking into audiobooks, yeah, maybe you're at that point that you're going, I've got to have some extra money. You know, next month I'm $200 short on the rent. I think this audiobook thing may be a way to do that. Most likely it's not. Let me just be straight with you. And I think most people will tell you that. Audiobooks tends to be a long-term thing. Yes, I know you see these people say, my first month I got 6 jobs and made $100,000 or whatever. That's the exception. And they probably had some really good training in acting or something else before they started. For most of us, as I mentioned, well, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at my 1099 for my first year. My first book went on sale in February of 2014, and you can see I made a whopping $12 and some odd cents there my first year. So, and I got to tell you, about November or so, I found myself thinking, is this really what I want to do? So how did I stay motivated? Well, first of all, I'll tell you, I did get lucky. Early on, say about, March or April or so, I did have an author contact me about doing some per finished hour work. And you will hear people say, you should never charge less than $200 per finished hour. Not true. If you're starting out, you've got to figure out what you're worth. I put a worth on my work of $75 an hour. That was probably about $70 more than it was actually worth. And lucked out and had an author who hired me to do a series of 3 books.
See, just knowing a little bit about the process of recording audiobooks, having looked at that second thought, I really want to say it's a second thought video that came out really recently. That per finished hour is key. So that's not the entire time that you are there. It's not the entire time you're working, including breaks and stuff like that. That's once everything is edited down and actually put into the finished product, you get, as he was saying, $75 in his case per finished hour. That's important if any of you are considering doing this as a career.
So that kind of kept me motivated. But when you get to those times where you're going, I just don't know, is this really what I want to do? You have to really stop and think about why you're doing it. If you're doing audiobooks just for the money, this is the great irony of a lot of things. If you're going at it just for the money, chances are that's not going to be enough motivation. You're going to get along and say, well, I'm not making anything at this. You have to find out, do you really love telling a story? That's what it boils down to. Do you just like chit-chatting? And I know sometimes when I would have a book and I think, I don't know about getting onto this, you got to realize somebody is waiting to hear that story, whether they know it or not. And it may literally be somebody, one person, but usually your books can get at least one listen. And so somebody is out there waiting to listen, and they can't hear it until you tell it. So you think about that. Okay, here's this story. I need to tell it. I've always done better being motivated for other people than I am for myself, and so that might work for you too. The other thing is when you look at these success stories and see these people, I've seen them post on the ACX Narrators Forum, $10,000 in 1 month. That's pretty motivating. How do you get to that level? First of all, it's practice, practice, practice. But now I've seen people too, questioning, I'm just not sure if I should keep doing this and stay in this. And people, well-meaning, will say, well, just keep trying. Well, that's not exactly good advice. There are a lot of things that I can try to be an Olympic skater and just go out and get me a pair of rollerblades and practice out in my driveway and just keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. But the reality is, well, for that I don't have the talent, the figure, the age, or the tools. You're going to have to invest in this. Oh, but I'm doing it to make money. Okay, well, initially, my approach, learn how to do it. Get a few royalty share jobs where you're not making anything, or at least you're making a little bit, maybe, if you do the right royalty shares or PFH. Get that experience so you kind of get the basics down. Then, or perhaps even before then, find somebody you trust who's doing well and ask their advice. This does not mean putting the question out on the ACX Narrators Forum and asking people for advice. Why? What, are they all terrible? No, I'm actually paraphrasing here advice from one of the admins of the site, Jeffrey Kafer. Now, a lot of good advice from him, who points out that anybody can put advice up there. Some of it's very good, some of it's very bad, but it all has this equal weight as it shows up in your feed. Better yet, find someone who's successful. Find the person who's doing what you want to do and ask them, how did you do it? You might have to pay them some money. Now let's talk about me now. How did I go from doing nothing that first year to, okay, here's my second year in ACX, in producing audiobooks. So with the royalties from books and
Cool. Okay, I think good advice, not exactly the sort of advice that we were looking for. We're just looking for the nuts and bolts recording. Here's one from Vox. This is going to be, oh no, a 5-minute video. This will be the last one that we do. How is it? I don't know. I did not have the volume up this high before. I don't know why it spiked all of a sudden.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna have to talk over this dumb music. Here we go. Let's get to
I
it.
was raised to be generic. Born that way. But on the third day in the second quarter, I'm starting to think it's not who I really am. I diagnose the things that computers can't.
This is really good. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think we're gonna shoot for this level of perfection on our first go out here, but this is cool. This is inspirational.
See. The moods they don't understand just yet. Usually it's to help sell things. But sometimes you glimpse a person in that reflective surface who seems a little bit like you.
It's so weird. I swear.
My name is Susie Jackson, and I am a narrator of audiobooks.
I swear I've heard her
Is that what we
voice
call ourselves?
on story podcasts before.
Like, I don't know. Audio voiceover artist. I mean, but like, we're talking about audiobooks, so. As I'm reading, anytime a character pops up, I'll underline their name. Very good, Dr. Snoot says. I didn't notice her behind me.
Ah.
She feels like a grandmother. I don't have one, but I've read about them in books. On to the next one. One trick that I'll do, trying to find if I have a place here. Like, let's say there's a sentence that says, she whispered at the end. So I need to know that before I start. So I'll underline it while I'm preparing the book. See, like, I'll draw an arrow to it, and so then I'll catch it before I'm saying it. So it's this weird mental trick of staying really present, but also kind of always reading a little bit ahead. After Dr. Snoot walks away, I fall into a daze until Kenneth hits me on the shoulder, Rita and Adelaide bouncing next to him. Addison, he says, sniffing a little and pushing his hair behind his ears. Do you want to go look at it again? I'm supposed to work. I have 13 cases to diagnose before break 4. Rita grabs me by the shoulders. Come on, daydreamer, let's go. I start to follow them, Adelaide chattering the entire time. Did you hear me? So that's what happens. You're like, and now my esophagus made some strange bubbling sound, so we stop and pick up. Adelaide chattering the entire time. That might be her greatest skill. I guess it's something about people from her district. So anyway, I was screening this guy who was totally non-operator.
Okay, I think we get the gist of her methods here. So she diagrams everything out. Again, we're not doing anything quite this in depth, because I mean it's a textbook. It is not a fiction. So with that, I think we can actually get into the introduction, and we're going to start doing some audio recording of this audiobook, which hopefully will go to something at the end of everything. Close that. Here we have our first choice to make. Do we say the author's name, even though it's not presented in this title? I think probably so, because they don't put it until way down here. In fact, I think we'll probably read this part first. So here we go. I'm going to take a little drink before we start. Honest feedback, folks. That's what we need here. Also, it's going to be harder since this is just a file in my computer. It's going to be harder for me to switch back and forth. So if you are commenting, I'm just going to have to hope that it shows up, that I notice it popping up, because I follow the stream on my phone at the same time so that I can see if I'm away from it, you know, if anyone's commenting or anything like that. So I'm going to do my best to keep up with the comments here, but it may be a little bit difficult. Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you. I have linked my Restream to Telegram. Apparently on Telegram, an app that I've never used before, but you can make audio channels or video channels, I guess. I think it's video channels. I don't even know. Let's see. Let me pull it up actually. Because one of the things that Restream said is that I'm not going to get, for some reason, Telegram does not send their comments to the grand unified chat feed that you all see scrolling on the side here. So I won't even know if anyone makes a comment. But I don't know how anyone would know about my Telegram channel were it not for me telling you. So I don't know. It doesn't even show that I'm live right now. I don't know. That's something I'm going to have to monkey around with a little bit more. So anyway, back to the text here. So to me, this says title page, even though it's not necessarily. For some reason, this introduction comes before. I don't even, so I don't have the actual book itself, so I don't know for sure whether or not this is even in the right order. I don't think it'll matter for the introduction. And we're not going to do all the minutia. We'll do the publisher, the title, author, illustrator, editing, sure, the publisher, and the copyright. And so apart from fair dealing for purposes of private study, research, criticism, or review. So we are doing this for educational purposes. This is just 100% what we're doing. I vow to make no money off of any of these recordings myself. Like I said, if somehow this video gets monetized, which I'm not even monetized on YouTube, so I don't know how that would even happen. I'd have to get a whole bunch of feedback and hits for that to happen. But in that, you know, wild scenario, I will somehow figure out how to either just demonetize the videos themselves, or donate the money to Gary or someone else. We're going to skip the table of contents too, I think. Although because this is a manual, it may be important. So let me know what you think, audience. Do we do Chapter 1 Introduction, 1.1, The Philosophy Behind Permaculture, 1.2, Ethics, 1.3, Permaculture in Landscape and Society, and so forth? Do we do that? Would that be useful in an audiobook? I don't think so. Usually they skip table of contents in audiobook readings. So I think we're just going to skip that part. Then we're going to come to the preface, but first we're going to skip around a little bit. Okay, I think I've made a decision, unless I see any dissent online. Yeah, you are the audience. Yeah, Telegram's broken. Whatever. I don't really care. It was just, I have 2 more slots to add stuff to Stream Element, or not, to Restream. So I thought, hey, we'll try Telegram. Maybe some more people somehow see it. But I don't even know how it really works. So, and that's fine, James. We have, believe it or not, we have 3 whole viewers right now. So you are not the only audience member, James. Okay, so I've made an executive decision here. We're going to start with this title page. This will be the very beginning to this audiobook journey. So we only have 10 minutes here before I have to get to bed, but we're going to get as far as we can on this. Should we start with an image description? because this is probably one of the most difficult images to describe. Whew. I think we should, because this is also the front cover of the book. Let's do title, image description. Oh no, let's actually, you know what? Let's do the image description after all of the legal stuff, the credits and whatnot. Permaculture, a Designer's Manual by Bill Mollison. Illustrated by Andrew Jeeves. Manuscript and editing, Rena Mia Slay. Copyright 1988, Tagari Publications, Tyalgum, Australia. Tyalgum, Australia. I'm going to have to find out how that's pronounced. All right. There we go. Second edition. So we have the title out of the way. Image description. On the left side of the picture, there is a rain cloud raining onto the middle. On the right side shows a sun shining onto the right side of the picture. In the middle is a rainbow serpent, and I happen to know this is one aside here. I happen to know this is a rainbow serpent because I've seen the actual cover of the book. In the middle of the image is a rainbow serpent making a figure eight or infinity symbol, and then an egg shape coming back on its own tail underground. In the middle of the serpent egg, we see a tree. Beneath the tree leaves, on the left side, are a chicken, and the roots of the tree are visible. On the right side, within the figure eight of the infinity, there's a duck paddling in a pond with a fish. There we have it. Permaculture, a Designer's Manual. This book is about designing sustainable human settlements and preserving and extending natural systems. It covers aspects of designing and maintaining a cultivated ecology in any climate, the principles of design, design methods, understanding patterns in nature, climate factors, water, soils, earthworks, techniques and strategies in the different climatic types, aquaculture, and the social, legal, and economic designs of human settlement. It calls into question not only the current methods of agriculture, but also the very need for formal food agriculture if wastelands and the excessive lawn culture within towns and cities are devoted to food production and small livestock suited to local needs. The world can no longer sustain the damage caused by modern agriculture, monocultural forestry, and thoughtless settlement design. And in the near future, we will see the end of wasted energy or the end of civilization as we know it, due to human-caused pollution and climate changes. Strategies for the necessary changes in social investments, strategies for necessary changes in social investment policy, politics itself, and towards regional or village self-reliance are now desperately needed, and examples of these strategies are given. It is hoped that this manual will open the global debate that must never end, and so give a guide to the form of a future in which our children have at least a chance of a reasonable existence. Image description. Bill Mollison is depicted behind a large plant in his garden. He is a bearded man in his middle age. Oh, here's a question. After I do an image description, should I say back to the text or something like that, give an indication, or should I just pause probably just pause and move on. See if we got any comments yet. You're funny, James. Here we are. Oh, interesting. So, on the 40th anniversary of this book's publishing, he would have been his 100th birthday. Pretty spectacular. Wait till that motorcycle passes and Amanda stops coughing. 1 second more. Born in 1928 in the small fishing village of Stanley, Tasmania, Bill Mollison left school at the age of 15 to help run the family bakery. He soon went to sea as a shark fisherman and seaman, bringing vessels from post-war disposals to southern ports, and until 1954, filled a variety of jobs as a forester, mill worker, trapper, snarer, tractor driver, and naturalist. Bill joined the CSIRO, quote, parentheses, Wildlife Survey Section, close parentheses, in 1954, and for the next 9 years worked in many remote locations in Australia as a biologist, doing field work on rabbits, locusts, mutton birds, and forest regeneration problems with marsupials. In 1963, he spent a year at the Tasmania Museum in curatorial duties, then returned to field work with the Inland Fisheries Commission, surveying the macrofauna of inland waters and estuaries, recording food chains and water conditions in all the rivers and lagoons of Tasmania. Returning to studies in 1966, he lived on his wits running cattle, bouncing at dances, shark fishing, and teaching part-time at an exclusive girls' school. Upon receiving his degree in biogeography, he was appointed to the University of Tasmania, where he later developed the unit of environmental psychology. During his university period, parentheses, which lasted for 10 years, close parentheses, Bill independently researched and published a 3-volume treatise on the history of genealogies of the descendants of the Tasmanian Aborigines. In 1974, he and David Holmgren developed and refined the permaculture concept, leading to the publication of Permaculture 1 and Permaculture 2. Since leaving the university in 1978, Bill has devoted all his energies to furthering the system of permaculture and spreading the idea and principles worldwide. He has taught thousands of students and has contributed many articles, curricula, reports, and recommendations for farm projects, urban clusters, and local government bodies. In 1981, Bill Mollison received the Right Livelihood Award, parentheses, sometimes called the Alternative Nobel Prize, in quotations, close parentheses, for his work in environmental design. In recent years, he has established a, quote, trust in aid, close quote, fund to enable permaculture teachers to research groups in need, particularly in the poorer parts of the world, with the aim of leaving a core of teachers locally to continue appropriate educational work. Bill Mollison is the Executive Director of Permaculture Institute. Bill Mollison is the Executive Director of the Permaculture Institute, which was established in 1979 to teach the practical design of sustainable soil, water, plant, and legal economic systems to students worldwide. Okay, that's the beginning of the introduction there. That's kind of the preface, or the preface. Skipping the contents, you all can look at that on your own. Oh, you know what? One thing I've forgotten to do was give you the link so you can look at the book yourself. So here it is. Download your own copy. This is a safe site. There's no viruses. This is where I got my copy from. Make sure that's in there right. And post. There we go. So you can follow along at home if you want to do your own recordings. You're not going to read. That's totally fine, James. That's part of the reason we're doing this together. You can have the full experience. And leave the reading to me. I think I'm going to... Okay, so I can see this. If I put a finger up, it's going to show up in front of my black shirt so that when I'm back in the editing booth, I can know when I have to go back and edit. This is going to be my note to self. Make sure to do like that. Okay. Because I do have video editing software that works fairly well. So I can chop this up and make sure we have a clean version at the end. Okay. Oh, it's 9 o'clock. So we're going to have to leave the preface for next time. But here's a preview of where we're going. Preface is going to talk about the author's note. It's for teachers and students and designers. It follows on and greatly enlarges on the initial introductory text, Permaculture 1 and Permaculture 2. Permaculture and its uses. It's a word coined by the author. Its copyright is vested in permaculture institutes and their colleges graduates, which is one reason that in order to use the word permaculture in any of your marketing materials, you know, marketing yourself, to call yourself a permaculture designer, you have to, by law, go through, or by copyright law anyway, go through a permaculture design certificate course, because they own the copyrights to that word. You can't use the word permaculture to describe yourself unless you take the appropriate course. That's the only way. They wanted to maintain control over use of the word so it didn't stray and mean just kind of whatever someone wanted it to. So we got our first little diagram, and then cover story. So we'll have to do this image description again, but it already is telling us the image description. So I don't think we'll actually have to do it twice. But there's a little preview for you. Oh no. I had 3 of 6. Jesus. So sorry about all the ads, folks. Well, I'll wait a little bit to wind things down. Let's see who's on Twitch in the meantime. Who can we raid into? Is Real Red Hom on right now? That would be a cool guy to raid into. Is he live right now? I must follow him. No, he's not live. Why does it say? That's so weird. Twitch is weird sometimes. It says things are live, but they're not. Everyone back now? I hope Ali is done as well. I don't know how it's giving you both ads at the same time. I don't think it did that anymore. Alright, I was just looking for someone to raid into because we are done at this point for the night. Time for me to get going. I know I got a real late start, but you know, it was a busy weekend, so I had to pack in a lot at the end here. So I apologize for that, but we will be back in the saddle tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for another edition of A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. So come back for that. We're learning all about the trail of broken treaties between the U.S. and the native populations. So not exactly the height of uplifting stuff, but it's important history to know. and that's why we do that. So tune in tomorrow night for that, and I will see you then. So I'm gonna raid into Freems, real cool streamer. Just doing some World of Warcraft stuff right now, so y'all can check that out. If you are seeing this from another place and you want to check out Freems, here's the link for their channel right there, and we will begin the raid presently. Thanks for joining. I hope you liked this sort of thing. Please give me some comments on this, especially if you're watching it on the YouTube channel or someplace where you can give comments after the fact. I would love to know what you think about this sort of thing. Because this is a departure. We are making audiobooks rather than just reading them and commenting on them. And our commentary is to a minimum because we're creating. And it would take forever if I had to comment on every little thing and read it. Way too much editing. Not up for that. Sorry. Anyway, here we go. Starting the raid. Oh, Radical Disability, thanks for being here. Long time no see. You're coming in right at the end here. We are beginning our journey on turning Permaculture, a designer's manual, into an audiobook. It does not exist. And we're doing so for people that absorb information better through audio form, people like myself who just don't have a lot of time to devote mental energy, or don't have a lot of time or mental energy, for that matter. Time or mental energy to devote to print. So I tend to consume my books as audiobooks anyway, and for the visually impaired, because until now, this has largely been beyond their ability to procure and read, because the only text versions other than the books themselves that exist, the only online print versions that I know of, are mostly decent scans of the pages, but they make a lot of mistakes when you apply any sort of a reader to it. Yeah, I know you don't read. That's totally fine. Anyway, we're all done for the night, unfortunately, so we are going to raid in, but thanks for joining now. Hope to see you tomorrow night for A People's History of the United States. More on broken treaties between the U.S. and Native Americans. So look forward to that. I will leave you with Freems. Assuming we can raid in. I've been having trouble raiding to other people. Been a lot of raid crashers and hate raids and stuff like that lately. So people have been kind of clamping down on who they allow to raid in. So let's hope it works for Freems here. Real great channel. Check them out either way. Here we go.